Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny follows daredevil archaeologist Indiana Jones as he races against time to retrieve a legendary dial that can change the course of history. But is this film a fantastic farewell to one of Hollywood's legendary adventurers, or is it a sour send-off? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. I just saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I'm going to give you my spoiler-free thoughts on the film. I will say I did have a lot of fun with this movie, but there is a lot of things to talk about, and I do feel like this movie is going to divide a lot of people, so let's just get right into it. The movie opens up with a very prolonged, some might say too long, opener, which is a throwback to essentially the entire franchise. And yes, this opener is the stuff that features the de-aged Harrison Ford Indiana Jones. I will say that the de-aging, for the most part, looks really well. I mean, the whole sequence takes place at night, so they're able to hide the face a little bit, but there are times where it does feel uncanny and a little weird. But outside of that, I think it was a fun opener, but it does last a little too long, and it's a great way to kind of reintroduce us to this franchise, especially where the film takes us following this introduction. After that, the story cuts to 1969, where we are reintroduced to Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones as we know him, an older, aging archaeologist slash professor. And I have to say, once we get back into 1969, or once we get into 1969, this is where, for me, the story really catches me. Because the themes of the movie are really time and aging, and about how, even if life can move past us, is there a place for us in the world? So for me, all of the stuff with the older Indiana Jones is what really, really worked. The opener, while it was fun, and while it felt like the older Indiana Jones films, like Raiders, like Temple of Doom, like Last Crusade, for me, it felt a little hollow, and I don't know if that was intentional or if that was just kind of part of the process of doing the de-aging, which, while it looks really great in this film, is still nowhere near where it should be. One of the things I love most about this movie is how they actually utilize the character of Indiana Jones, because when we do catch up to him in 1969, we see that he is celebrating his retirement. He's being forced to retire from Hunter College in New York, and we see that the world is kind of evolving past him. The movie opens in 1969 on Moon Day, when we launch the rocket to the moon, and people are less interested in the past and more interested in the future. We could see that kind of life is passing Indiana Jones by. From there, we're introduced to Indiana Jones' goddaughter, Helena Shaw, and the adventure kicks off proper as Indiana Jones and Helena Shaw need to stop Jurgen Voller from getting Archimedes' dial, aka the titular Dial of Destiny, and all of your typical Indiana Jones hijinks ensue. I really loved all the set pieces in this film. I think they did a great job of utilizing an older Harrison Ford, aka Indiana Jones, in these set pieces, so he's not doing things that are super unbelievable. I mean, the Indiana Jones franchise has always had Indiana Jones doing things that are super hard to believe, but they never take you out of the film for the most part. But this movie does a really good job of utilizing Indiana Jones in sequences where you're like, okay, I could see an older person doing these kind of set pieces. I really think the tone of the film fits very well inside of the Indiana Jones franchise. I think it feels like an Indiana Jones film. So I found myself having a lot of fun with the action and found myself having a lot of fun with the adventure as the movie went forward. But there were a couple of times where I got kind of pulled out of it a little bit, and we'll talk about that later on. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena Shaw is probably going to divide some people. I know some people may view her character as Indiana Jones light, but I don't see that at all. I actually really love the swerve they took with her character, and while I went into this thinking she was going to be like just another Indiana Jones-esque character, I really loved what they ended up doing with her character and how that played off of Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is phenomenal. I think she needs to star in more stuff, because I could not take my eyes off of her this entire film. She has this natural charisma to her that works very well with the gruff masculinity of Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones, and I think the two of them play very well off each other, and it really worked for me. Talking about the other new characters, I really think everyone outside of Toby Jones, who plays Basil Shaw, who is Helena's father, I think everyone sadly was wasted. I think the villains, who are once again Nazis, Mads Mikkelsen as Jurgen Voller and Boyd Holbrook, they were both really wasted in their roles. I really loved them for however long they were on screen, but they just didn't really give them anything to do outside of being the menacing villain of the movie type of stuff. Which is a shame because Boyd Holbrook, whenever he's on screen, he really captivates you and he really draws your attention and you really want to dislike him in this role. I just wish that he would have been the main villain. They really would have streamlined the villains and had him be the main villain because I think that that would have worked really well. And I mean, we can't talk about an Indiana Jones movie without talking about Indiana Jones himself, Harrison Ford, who I think really brings it in this movie. But once we get past all of the action stuff and the de-aging stuff, just these dialogue scenes when Mangold is able to kind of break formula and slow it down and give us these really interesting character moments. Ford does a really good job of portraying the struggle, the internal struggle that Indiana is going through in this film. And without spoiling anything, there's a lot of internal conflict going on with Indiana Jones in this movie. And it's really interesting to see Harrison Ford play that, and it really seemed like he cared making this movie. Speaking of James Mangold, I think he did a really wonderful job of creating a Indiana Jones film in his own vision. He takes some really big swings in this movie, some that worked, and some that really didn't for me. One of the things that just doesn't work for me is the third act of the film. It really gets a little bonkers, and it took me completely out of the movie, which is a shame because I was sitting in the theater loving the first 2 acts of this movie despite their flaws, and then the third act really took me out of it. And I can see the third act dividing a lot of people and a lot of fans of the franchise. You know, some people are saying it works for them, but for me personally, it just did not work and it didn't sit right with me. Does it make sense in terms of story? Kind of. Did we need to do it? I really don't think we did, and it's really jarring. Another thing that really disappointed me, unfortunately, was the score. I was really excited to get a new John Williams Indiana Jones score in theaters, but unfortunately, outside of the familiar tunes, there's nothing that really feels memorable in the score itself. I do think the final scene is a wonderful send-off to the character of Indiana Jones, and one that fans of the franchise will feel satisfied with, even if they weren't satisfied with the movie. I think there's a lot in Dial of Destiny for longtime fans of the franchise to really love, but at the same time, if you're a casual fan of the franchise, I don't know if you're gonna love this film. I think there's some really wonderful character stuff in here, and I love the action set pieces, but there are some choices that are made early on in the film and later in the film that I think really take audiences out of it. With that being said, I still had a lot of fun with it, so I'm giving Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny 2.5 hats out of 5. It's still a fun summer blockbuster, and if you're not looking to analyze things too heavily, I think you'll really have fun with this film. Thanks for watching, guys. You can check out more movie reviews to the left, and if you liked the video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, stay versed.